It is with a great sense of pride and indeed immense pleasure that I stand before you tonight here at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort to deliver.
Welcome to the Caribbean Telecommunications Union ICT Week 2024, an annual event taking place right here at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort. This long week gathering has brought together a diverse group of policymakers, industry leaders, and technology experts from across the region and beyond. Under the theme, Bridging Technologies for a Sustainable and Inclusive Future, we're exploring the transformative power of digital innovation and its potential to shape a better world for all. From government officials to tech entrepreneurs, our speakers are sharing insights and discussing the latest trends in telecommunications, cybersecurity, and digital transformation. Join us as we delve into the challenges and opportunities facing the Caribbean region and explore how technology can drive sustainable development and social inclusion.
We're so delighted to be hosting the CTU ICT Week for 2024. This is a signature event for the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, and this year in particular we have a wide swath of industry experts and policymakers, including the Secretary General from the ITU. We have the Secretary General from the Commonwealth Telecommunication Organization, plus of course the SG from the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, plus a number of ministers from around the region, industry experts from Google, Amazon, Meta, etc. So it's a melting pot of the telecommunication ICT field. So we're delighted to have that. The expectations, of course, is to have some discussions, one about understanding what the emerging technologies look like, discussions about how we can improve our infrastructure so that we can deliver faster service to our users. We're looking at the things we need to do to build a better regulatory framework. I expect that we're going to be talking about things like data security and data sovereignty. Where does our data reside? How do we set up centers? How do we leverage what other countries are doing and make sort of like a Caribbean network? So there are a whole host of things that we want to be able to discuss, all in an attempt to move the Caribbean countries faster and further in the digital transformation field.
We would like to extend our sincere gratitude to our generous sponsors, whose support made this CTU ICT Week possible. Their commitment
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed members of the press, honored guests, and representatives from various sectors, a warm welcome to you all. I'm Jamie Morris, Communications Officer in the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, Energy, Utilities, and Domestic Transport. It is a pleasure to have you join us today for this important press conference, organized collaboratively by the Ministries of Public Infrastructure, Energy, Utilities, and Domestic Transport, and Information, Communications and Technology, and Posts. Under the esteemed leadership of the Honorable Minister Konris Maynard, we gather here to reflect on our past achievements and set our sights on the future. Today, we embrace the theme, 2024 in Review, 2025 in Focus, transforming our nation through ICT, energy, utilities, infrastructure, and transport. This theme underscores our collective commitment to enhancing the lives of our citizens through innovation, sustainability, and comprehensive development in critical sectors. And that just underscores how important electricity is. We are particularly honored to have several distinguished guests with us today, including key stakeholders, industry leaders, and representatives from our community who play a vital role in advancing our initiatives. I acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Minister Konris Maynard, Minister of Public Infrastructure, Energy, Utilities, and Domestic Transport, Information, Communications, and Technology and Posts, a hefty portfolio. I also acknowledge the presence of Permanent Secretary, Mr. Darrell Lloyd, the Assistant Secretaries, Ms. Tiffany Hodge and Mrs. Celeste Henderson, and directors of various departments and your staff, members of the press, and you, the audience. Your presence, again, underscores the collaborative effort essential for our nation's transformation. Minister Maynard will present a review of the remarkable accomplishments of 2024 across ICT, infrastructure, energy, utilities, domestic transport, and posts in just a few moments. Following the minister's insights, we will transition into our open dialogue segments, where he will engage with department leaders, guest interviewer Jamiela Macphail, and me in focused discussions on each area's progress and future directions. We highly encourage interaction during our Q&A segment, where both in-house media and our online audience can pose questions to the minister and his team. We invite our online viewers to engage actively with us on social media, as your contributions may shape the discussion and receive direct responses from our panel. So we are privileged also to have with us here today a youth representative, Michaelia Tucker, who will address the concerns significant to her generation. And after Ms. Tucker presents her question to the minister, the floor will be yours to present your questions. So once again, thank you for being here and online with us today. I now invite the Honorable Minister, Konris Maynard, to bring his opening remarks.
Pleasant good morning to all. Good morning, sir. Pleasant good morning to all. Good morning. It is my pleasure to be here. Please allow me to acknowledge the presence of the...
Sir, your mic is off.
I'm told the mic is off.
Yes. All right, sorry.
Good morning again, distinguished colleagues and media experts. Allow me to recognize, of course, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, Energy, Utilities, Domestic Transport. I recognize your Assistant Mr. Darrell Lloyd. I recognize Mrs. Henderson, the Assistant Secretary in the Ministry of ICT and Posts, as the PS is off island. I know the Director of ICT, Mrs. Hon.Konris, the Manager of Water Services.
Sorry.
Okay. That's better. Testing. Okay. All right. Apologies for the listening public. Apparently there was a fault with the microphone, and we have made the adjustment now. So allow me again to just acknowledge the presence of the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, Mr. Darrell Lloyd, the Assistant Secretary in the Ministry of ICT. Darrell Lloyd is Public Infrastructure, Energy, Utilities, and Domestic Transport. Mrs. Henderson, Assistant Secretary in ICT and Posts, We have Mrs. Camille Bruno-Odain as the Director of ICT. We have the Deputy Director of Public Works, Miss Claxton. We have the Water Manager in the Water Services Department, Mr. Cromwell Williams, the Director of Energy in the Energy Unit, Dr. Bertil Brown, all other heads of departments and staff of the ministries which I serve. Thank you for being here this morning. I look forward to this interaction and questions. Well, I acknowledge also the CEO of the cable, Mrs. Pat Walters. I also acknowledge in the background Advisor and Chief Digital Transformation Officer, former Minister of ICT, Mr. Nigel Carty. And I think I've covered most everyone now. Oh, I see the PMG for the post office, Mr. Lapsey. I also see the advisor to the post office, Ms. Sandra Davron. I see the CEO or General Manager of Skelec, Mr. Jomo Williams. Have I captured everybody now? I believe so. Sorry? Right. I think I've captured everybody in the ministries. And of course, I want to say welcome to all the media houses that are here present this morning. So today, I am extremely delighted to dialogue with the different departments in my ministry, along with the media, as we address the challenges and successes we have had for 2024 and to outline our projection for 2025. As your Minister of Public Infrastructure, Energy and Utilities, Domestic Transport, Information, Communication, Technology and Post, I stand resolute as we work together to make this federation stronger and better. In the face of the local and global challenges that we face, it is important for us to know that our actions today will determine our future tomorrow. In fact, it is because previous to now, others may not have taken decisive actions yesterday so that our today could be much better. Consequently, it has become significantly important that we put in place a bold strategy to build a future, to build our tomorrow that is secure and sustainable. As we close the final chapters of 2024, we can look back on a year of challenges and also tremendous successes, which clearly demonstrates that we can achieve greatness with the right leadership and teamwork. This administration that I am proud to be a part of is committed to transforming this island federation, like no other government has done before, into a sustainable island state. Please permit me, however, to spend the majority of my time today on water and energy, as our able directors and heads of departments will also be able to elaborate further on other issues within the ministry. And at another press conference, we will then switch it around to bring into focus the other key areas. Water. Water is life, and every drop counts. Water is life, and every single drop counts. Even the little spread the AC is giving me right now. Like most Caribbean countries, St. Kitts and Nevis has a small landmass with limited catchment basins, creating limitations in the replenishment of freshwater resources. Previous to 2023, we relied on rainfall for 100% of our potable water supply, 30% surface water and 70% groundwater. Over the past decade or so, our rainfall has decreased by 20%, while demand has increased by more than that. Consequently, there is a lack of availability of surface water throughout the year, leading to higher dependence on the limited amounts of groundwater, which require, of course, fossil fuel energy to extract and distribute. Additional climate change factors have also exacerbated the problem with rising sea levels threatening further saltwater intrusion, and rising temperatures drying up the land, reducing the percolation of water to our aquifers. The result of this is that the Water Services Department is unable to provide 24-hour water service to its customers at this time. We cannot have this. This administration is mindful of the frustrations of not being able to turn on the faucet at any time of the day, whether it is to clean the baby, to wash the dishes, to wash the clothes, to take a bath during the day, or 1 a.m. after any midnight activities. Many of us have to rely on a water schedule, and we fashion our lives accordingly. Now, due to the enormous amount of misinformation and propaganda that festers in social media and elsewhere, I must say this. There was negligible attention paid to water delivery during the previous administration. There is nothing substantial that anyone can point to as a dedicated strategy to deal with the water crisis, which deepened during the major drought of 2015. Under my leadership of this ministry, and with the support, of course, of the cabinet, we are now making the tough, long-term investments to finally bring significant relief to our citizens and residents. So far, we have increased the water budget by over 400%. We have reinstated the water board that had been dormant for years. We have set up a 24-hour water hotline service. We have recommenced groundwater exploration with drilling for new wells. After decades of water issues in Keyon, this year we commissioned a brand new well in Keyon, bringing significant relief to the people of this area and its environs. We have procured the services to build 1 million gallons of tank storage in Keyon. We are presently undertaking a drone-based airborne geophysical survey to identify new and unexplored areas for more groundwater wells, particularly on the western side of the island, from Sandy Point right around to the northern side of the island up to Keyon. We have procured a 200,000 gallon tank for the Deep Bay area, as the original tank was observed to have significant leaks. We have procured thousands of feet of water pipe to replace the deteriorating pipeline on the southeast peninsula. We have entered into arrangements to purchase desalinated water from Royal Utilities that is being actively pumped in the water system in Frigate Bay. We constructed a pump house in the Frigate Bay area for better integration of the desalinated water into the water infrastructure in Frigate Bay and the southeast peninsula. We have done construction of fencing to protect some of our exposed water assets like storage tanks and pump houses. We are in the middle of expanding the Water Services Administration building at Needmos. We have done an interconnection of storage facilities at Olives and Lagreet to have the ability to share water coming from the west with areas that are normally fed from other distressed wells around the Bastia Aquifer. We have achieved the project preparation stage for the US $40 million Transwater project through the GCF. We have just completed the construction of a 70,000 gallon a day solar powered desalination plant in collaboration with the UAE at Canada Industrial Site. Construction is now completed, as I mentioned, and we are presently in the commissioning and training phase for hopeful operation in February of 2025. Our Bastia Valley Aquifer is under undue stress. It has been over-extracted, and if we continue, we can lose it for decades. Therefore, this administration has taken the monumental decision to invest in a 2 million gallon a day desalination plant at the Paul Southwell Industrial Park, not too far from where we are right now. All the planning, all the soil testing, all the designing is now complete, and the project is well into the construction phase. The following is on the horizon in 2025. The construction of new wells, similar to that in Keon, for areas between Sandy Point heading west to Molyneux. The full construction of storage tanks in Keon and in Bastia. The pipe replacement project on the Southeast Peninsula. The completion of the water services building expansion. The replacement of the water services building roof that is leaking. The replacement of the Lagreet water storage tank roof. Engage in consultancy services for the transition of the water services department to a corporate body. The initiation of the smart meter project. And the initiation of the digitization of the water services project through the implementation of a SCADA system, or what is called a supervisory control and data acquisition system, where valves and pumps can be operated remotely and tank levels can be checked remotely, allowing for instantaneous decision making to facilitate a much more efficient water delivery service. We have planned more fencing and upgrades of pump houses and storage facilities. We will build a new large pipeline from the Dissal location here in Paul Southwell Industrial Site all the way up to Monpeak, where we have 2 million gallons of water storage. We will start the operation of the 70,000 gallon UAE collaborated Dissal plant at Canada Industrial Site. And we will also have the completion and operation of the Bastia 2 million gallon Dissal plant. We will also see the onboarding of new and training of both existing and new staff for the operation of these desalination plants. I want to take this opportunity to ask you to put your hands together for the Water Services Department for this tremendous amount of work that is being done and led by our water manager and the assistant engineers and the entire team at Water Services Department, including the foremen and those who get up at 2 and 3 in the morning to trod the very dangerous terrain in our hillsides to ensure that we have some water throughout the day. I also took the decision as minister to not only hear from the workers, but to also go and experience what they experience. And so I've gone to at least 3 or 4 sources, and I can tell you, it is quite a journey. It is dangerous. They can meet up all sorts of things that people don't want you to see. One slip can mean the end of a life. And so I want to really extend commendation and gratitude to the excellent work of the workers of the Water Services Department. Please put your hands together for them one more time. We are now making a difference in water. I know it might seem as though it is taking some time, but it has to. Real investment takes planning, designing, and proper implementation. I'll turn now to energy. As we move to our goal of 100% renewable energy generation by 2030, it is critical to understand that this is a transition over time as opposed to instantly. There was a great blunder that was made post-2015, and the sound advice from the experts at SCELEC and regionally and globally was not heeded. Someone believed that the transition to solar energy meant to abandon the necessary upgrades of the fixed capacity generators at the Needmust power plant and focus solely on solar PV and battery energy. This was a costly error of judgment. SCELEC is faced with generators that are way past their useful life cycle, with 40 and 25-year-old units, and other generators that are overrun because SCELEC had no spare capacity to take them offline for maintenance. For instance, firstly, the demand on St. Kitts is approximately 28 megawatts peak. Am I correct? It's around there? Good. Since joining the administration, SCELEC has only had around the same 28 megawatts of available capacity. What does this mean? This means that if one generator goes down for any reason at all, load would have to be shed and people will lose electricity. The solution here is to invest in new fixed capacity gensets to ensure that the plant has the ability to routinely remove generators out of service for regular maintenance. However, no such investments were pursued post-2015, as was done in the 2010 to 2015 Labour administration, where I think up to 4 new gensets were procured. Instead, all the eggs were placed in the solar PV battery energy basket. Here is the problem with that. Solar energy project relies on full sunlight all day to get maximum results where the system can provide, let's say, 12 megawatts of fixed power for a maximum of 14 hours out of the day, if and only if we had a full sunny day. One rainy day, and you have no chance of those numbers. Therefore, when the solar energy system shuts off, say at 8 p.m., after the batteries run out, the sun has gone down, you have to go back to your generators. Well, if they're not in order, if one is out of service, or if one is on its dying bed, then you will have poor and spotty power from 8 p.m. in the night until 7 a.m. in the morning when the solar system can turn on again. You see, the advantage of transition to solar energy is not necessarily about immediately getting rid of your generators, but rather to save on the cost of fuel to run those generators. As the real cost of using generators is not the generator itself, but the high and fluctuating cost of fuel. Thus, while the cost of a fixed generator may sound high at, say, 80 million EC dollars for 18 megawatts worth of power, the fuel to run the Needmos plant could be in excess of 100 million EC dollars every year. That's right. So, yes, you have to buy a fixed capacity generator, which is going to cost a substantial investment. But the fuel to run it is what the real cost is. And the solar energy system should be seen as a way to minimize that cost. However, until it is economically feasible to have batteries to run all night, and it is not at the moment, there is a fine balance as to how much batteries you can place with solar PV to make it make economic sense. Until that happens, and until there is the full development of our geothermal options, we must have the ability to run our entire grid on generators with spare capacity at hand for when the batteries run out each night and for those days when the sun is hiding behind the clouds. Thus, this administration is making the right decision in upgrading the Needmos plant with new dual fuel 18 megawatt worth of fixed generation capacity as part of the transition strategy to 100% renewable energy production, inclusive of solar, wind, batteries, and geothermal. Earlier this year, we signed an agreement with the Saudi Fund for Development for a US $40 million funding arrangement for the procurement and installation of the new 18 megawatt plant and the utility side battery storage in anticipation of distributed renewable energy placed on the grid. It is important to note that all financing mechanisms pursued, this option was by far the most affordable, as it has a 3-year holiday for repayment and the lowest interest rate on the market. Another reason why we should never place all our eggs in one basket is that, unfortunately, the government and SCELEC has had to terminate the agreement with Solec Power Limited for the construction of a solar PV battery energy storage facility after their own inability to start the project. That was initiated all the way back in 2017. Earlier this week, the following press statement was released, and I'll just read the press statement for the benefit of those who have not seen it. Solec Power unable to meet contractual obligations to start solar energy project despite multiple extensions. Skelec and federal government terminate agreement. Bastia, St. Kitts, 9 December 2024. The government of St. Kitts and Nevis, the government, and the St. Kitts Electricity Company Limited, Skelec, have terminated the renegotiated power purchase agreement, PPA, with Solec Power, Solec, for the construction of a solar PV and battery energy storage project. This decision follows the failure of Solec Power Limited to meet critical contractual obligations, requirements, and deadlines despite repeated extensions and significant efforts by Skelec and the government to facilitate project implementation. On 25 November 2024, Solec informed Skelec and the government that Solec, and I quote, is not currently in a position to issue FNTP, which is full notice to proceed, end of quote, by the 25th November 2024 deadline as agreed to and required by the PPA. Consequently, Solec is still unable to start the project. This notification follows a similar notice from Solec after failing to meet the original FNTP deadline of 28 May 2024 outlined in the renegotiated power purchase agreement of 28 November 2023. Subsequent to Solec's failure to meet the 28 May 2024 deadline, Solec was offered a 45-day extension to 19th July 2024. Solec advised that it was still unable to meet this deadline. In September of 2024, Solec proposed a further 60-day extension, which was agreed to by all parties on 26 September 2024 as the final extension. This final contractual deadline has now not been met by Solec. The project, which originated in 2017 but had not started by the change of administration in 2022, was reviewed by the new administration to ensure alignment with the nation's best interests. The review agreed to by Solec was facilitated by the Caribbean Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, which is called CICRE. The findings revealed important aspects of the agreement that were unfavorable to Skelec and by extension the government and people of St. Kitts and Nevis. These findings prompted the renegotiation of the PPA to achieve, among other things, 1, a reduction in the power purchase price, 2, an opportunity for local private sector investment in the project, and 3, rigid timelines for completion of the project. The renegotiated power purchase agreement was signed on 28 November 2023. By this time, Skelec and the government had anticipated that this project would be well advanced and further renewed our commitment to the success of this project through the willingness to accommodate the repeated extension requests. However, despite all the efforts made to facilitate the implementation of this project, Solec still remains today unable to fulfill its obligations under the PPA to get the project started. Consequently, as Skelec, the government, and the people of St. Kitts and Nevis cannot wait indefinitely, it has become necessary to terminate the PPA and open opportunities for the real viable alternatives that are ready to move forward. While this outcome is regrettable, this decision underscores the government's steadfast commitment to accountability, transparency, and prioritizing the best interests of St. Kitts and Nevis. The government wishes to reaffirm its commitment to deliver affordable, reliable, and renewable energy solutions to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Accordingly, in the coming weeks, Skelec and the government will be announcing new renewable energy opportunities aimed at transparently and inclusively advancing our energy transition goals and creating local economic opportunities. End of press conference. Press statement, sorry. Press statement. And as mentioned in the press statement, very shortly the government will be announcing the viable alternatives that we have been working on in the background in the event that this was actually the outcome, and you will hear more about those. Now, due to the non-existence of the extra capacity at the power plant and the urgent need to overhaul massively overrun generators, SCELEC recommended the rental of 6 megawatts worth of sure capacity power from reputable international providers for 1 year in the first instance. They pursued a vigorous procurement process and selected Aggreko, which is a UK-based energy supply company, to supply the temporary 6 megawatt power plant that is now operating. In fact, I am advised that the next day after the temporary plant was brought into service, the 6 megawatt temporary plant, a 6 megawatt generator at the plant failed. This means that we would have had to go into massive load shedding had that plant not been installed then. You see, the advantages of this arrangement are that SCELEC does not have to expend any resources to upkeep this temporary plant, as the service provider is required by contract to supply the power, and there are contractual requirements to deal with non-provision of service. This means that SCELEC can focus on the required overhauls of their own generators. Some may ask, well, why not just buy a 6 megawatt generator? The answer is fairly simple. These types of generators do not sit on a shelf, as they have to be designed and custom made for the specific environment, especially as they are intended to last 20 to 25 years. You must also factor in the construction of civil works to house the generator and all the procurement needed to achieve the job. This is a 2-year process, just as it is a 2-year process for the Needmust expansion being presently undertaken with the Saudi fund. There was an urgent need, as generators at SCELEC were on the brink. Within months, the temporary plant was installed and commissioned just in the nick of time. Another critical position of the administration is to ease the burden of the fluctuating cost of electricity by subsidizing fuel variation charge for residential customers. This continues in order to bring relief to consumers as global phenomena dictate the price of fuel. If you look at your electricity bill, there is a line that says FVC charge. You will see that it is zeroed out. The government is zeroing that out for you. Additional ongoing energy projects include the development of bidding documents right now for the drilling of the geothermal wells in Nevis and the financing mechanisms to the CDB and other investors. Small-scale distributed renewable energy regulations are being finalized, what we call sometimes the feed-in tariff. An electric vehicle policy and action plan is also being finalized. There's the development of what is called an energy practitioners directory, where you can find energy practitioners to be able to install your energy renewable source systems. We had the launch of the SKN 100 project, a collaborative effort between the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Global Environment Fund, and the Caribbean Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. This ambitious initiative aims to accelerate our transition toward a carbon-free economy, emphasizing sustainable practices and the responsible management of energy resources. Now, as I was preparing for this press conference and going through all the list of projects, I realized how long it will take to go through each and every one of them. And so in the interest of time, just permit me to highlight some of the many projects funded through the Ministry of Public Infrastructure that are being undertaken through the Public Works Department. One, everybody is aware, of course, of the St. Peter's Main Road, which is an extensive development project stemming from the airport roundabout, heading west, and then north up to New Road, through Monkey Hill, and up to Orgees. That project is well on schedule and going fairly nicely. We had the construction of Palmetto Point New Roads. There is a hotel in that area, and that road is now complete, if I'm correct. It stems from the Palmetto Point region, heading back to the Garvey's region. We have the Boyd's View New Road project, This is a community road in Boyd's area that is the phase 1 of that project. They are well advanced in this project. I think they're doing some storm drains right now. We have Race Course in Newton Ground, where that's another main road, village road, community road, concrete road project that is happening. We have Rollins St. Paul's, that is happening. We have White House in St. Peter's, that is happening. We also have the Fort Lands revetment, that is ongoing. We have the Phillips Slopes upgrade, that is happening, among many other smaller projects that are happening. This has nothing to do with the projects that Public Works help to manage for other ministries. These are just the ones in our ministries. One thing before I come off of Public Works, which I think is very critical. With all of these projects coming on stream, it has exposed a long-standing weakness in the system, which is at our quarry. During the construction of the Island Main Road, for instance, the quarry was unable to provide stones at the rate to keep up with that project. It caused significant delays, and delays cost the government significant amount of money. In this case, because all of these projects are now coming on stream, and with the future brimming with more construction, including the desal plant, the new hospital, the arts theater, the housing project, the smart home initiative, the regular NHC housing project, all of the additional new roads, and all of the private sector construction, building homes, the hotel constructions that are afoot. We are in a situation where we have to upgrade our quarry, and I'm pleased to say that after 30 years, the quarry is in the middle of being completely upgraded with completely new quarrying equipment. One is already on ground, which is the primary crusher, and en route to us right now is what is called a secondary crusher, the screen, and very shortly a truck, an excavator, among with other small things to really bring the quarry up to where it needs to be to handle the amount of construction that is projected for 2025. If I go quickly over to ICT, which I will allow the director to give more meat on this, there are some critical projects that we're working on, including the IXP expansion and the setting up of the IXP, which is now in existence here at this location, where internet service providers can link in one place to share data across the Federation. We also have the national eID system, which is the digital ID which will authenticate every resident and citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis, such that in the future, you will be able to have your digital ID show up at a government institution and not have to provide any information whatsoever. A true source of who you are, your address, and any information that is required for that particular institution. This is being funded, of course, by our very good friends from the Republic of China and Taiwan. Our team visited Taiwan a few weeks ago and really were marveled with the level of sophistication that is being put into the development of this particular card. It will have the utmost security similar to that of credit cards. It's the same thing as the security for credit cards. And they went to the facility in the world. Taiwan is the headquarters, of course, as you know, of the microchips that are needed for these type of things. And they were able to visit and see firsthand how this is done. And so we look forward to the implementation of that project. Yesterday, or day before yesterday, we had the award ceremony for the design competition, where the person won the designing of the card. There were 53 entrants into the competition, and I can't remember the name offhand now. Jenna Bass was the winner of the competition. So that is a very important project that is ongoing. And then finally, in the posts, one critical aspect of ensuring that we have a fully fledged digital ID is to be able to have a proper national addressing system for a number of reasons. One, businesses, banks, governments, etc. will always ask you to provide proof of your address. Right now, someone can live on the same street and have a completely different address. When you have to give instructions and you're going by Dr. Brown will tell you, drive up the road, you're going to see a red car parked in a green garage. There's a mango tree on the left and a tamarind on the right. Take a left and go under the bush that you see there and you're going to find me. The national addressing system will allow him to say, meet me at 4 Bertil Drive, Hummingbird, Bastia, St. Kitts, and you will know where to find it. And so the post office is leading on the national addressing system that will help with the digital ID to have a fixed address for everybody, every location, every building, every property in St. Kitts. But importantly, also for security reasons, oftentimes, and there was a situation I think earlier this year, where the ambulance was called and the ambulance could not figure out where to go to get to the patient in need. With a national addressing system, it means when you call 911 and give them the address, the ambulance does not need to get any other information. They will know where to find it. So I want to thank you for this opportunity to bring some of what we're doing and what is forecast going forward for the new year of 2025. I'll now turn it back over to the chairperson of today's proceedings for us to engage in the conversation and questions from media professionals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, for that comprehensive overview. There is an announcement that I have for some of you who might be here. Those of you who are parked at Harper's, you are asked to move your vehicles, please. So if that is any one of you, please move your vehicle quickly. All right, so we are about to transition into the open dialogue format where we will engage more directly with the heads of department and the minister as well, after which we'll give you a chance to ask questions in an open question and answer forum. So at this point, we'll take a break as we transition, and we'll be back very shortly.
Welcome to the guide for setting up a bill.
It is with a great sense of pride and indeed immense pleasure that I stand before you tonight here at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort to deliver remarks at this very prestigious event, which is the 51st Executive Council meeting and the General Conference of Ministers of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, alongside the highly anticipated ICT Week 2024. I am even all the more pleased that you have come to St. Kitts and Nevis on the heels of the celebration of our nation's anniversary of political independence. It is indeed my pleasure that the CTO accepted my invitation to host this year's ICT Week right here in St. Kitts and Nevis. At 41 years of independence, St. Kitts and Nevis continues to strategically position itself as a leader on the ICT landscape, driving digital change that empowers its citizens and setting an example for the region. On behalf of the government and people of St. Kitts and Nevis, I really want to warmly in here, welcome you to our beautiful Twin Island Federation, where we are honored to host such a significant gathering of regional and international thought leaders, policymakers, and innovators in the information and communication technology space. Welcome again. Now, the theme for this year's event, Bridging Technologies for a Sustainable and Inclusive Future, resonates deeply with our shared aspirations as young Caribbean nations. In an age where technological advancement is not only shaping but radically transforming our economies, governance structures, and societies, the need for sustainable and inclusive development has never been more pressing. Sustainability and inclusion are two pillars that must underpin all of our regional efforts as we embrace a digital future. As small island developing states, we are no strangers to the vulnerabilities brought about by climate change, although we have very little in contribution to its effect. Economic fluctuations, issues of security, and technological disruptions. Therefore, the challenge before us is to harness emerging technologies in ways that foster economic resilience, protect our natural environments, and empower every citizen, regardless of where they live, their social status, or abilities. The role of ICT in regional integration. Information and communication technology holds immense potential to not just catapult the economic development of the Caribbean region. ICT is not merely a tool for communication, like in the Garden of Eden. It is the very infrastructure that will enable us to deepen
Welcome back to our press conference. I am joined by the Honorable Minister Hon.Konris Maynard and the Deputy Director of the Department of Public Works, Ms. Cher Claxton. In this segment, we are going to delve a little more deeply into the work of the Public Works Department for the year 2024, looking at some of the highlights that Ms. Claxton will share with us, and then looking also at some of the future plans. Ms. Claxton, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
I hope that you're relaxed. This is an open format. Please feel free to relax. Okay. So you are Deputy Director, as I said, of the Public Works Department. There's been a lot of activity. I know that the Minister just mentioned quite a few activities, but I want to get from you a sense of the activities that stand out to you, as in the machinery of the Public Works Department, what keeps it going? I know roads, for instance, is one of those things. There are quite a few projects. Why don't we start there?
Okay, so good morning to everyone. The Public Works Department has been facilitating quite a number of projects throughout the year 2024, both large and small, in collaboration with all of the other line ministries. But I'd like to make mention of just a few of those large projects that we have been working on so far that are already in progress, some are almost complete. So the first one I'd like to speak about is very significant to the Ministry of Health, and that is the construction of the MRI building. That is for housing the new MRI machine, and that will also comfortably provide services for people who require it. So for that project, we're about 40% complete, so we're really looking forward to that next year. The second project that I'd like to mention is the relocation of the traffic department. That project is one that is near completion. The contractor is currently working on the finishes stage of the project. So that means the tiling works, the painting is already in progress. And so that project is on target for completion in February. For the Ministry of Sports, we have the construction of the Connery Pavilion, which I know is very dear to the people of Connery. That is about 85% complete. That project is also in the finishes stage, where the contractor is completing the installation of windows, doors, and painting. So that is also progressing ahead of schedule and should be complete anytime soon. Also under the Ministry of Sports, we have the Kim Collins Stadium and the track. Now, I know that this project was mentioned during the press conference with the Honorable Minister Samuel Duggins a couple of weeks ago, but I know it's very important, it's very significant, especially with the track and field season, 2025 season on our heels. So I'd just like to reiterate some of what was said in that press conference. So regarding the track, the civil works are in progress, and once that is completed, we have a contractor coming in to lay the synthetic material on the track itself, as well as installing the other field equipment. When it comes to the stadium, we have already engaged a contractor to commence the repair works of the stadium, and so he understands the sensitivity, the time sensitivity of the project, and he has committed to us to completing the works as much as he can so that we have a functional and aesthetically pleasing stadium to accommodate the patrons for the inter-school championships, both primary and secondary, that are scheduled for 2025. In our ministry, our very own Ministry of Public Infrastructure, as you mentioned, we have quite a number of road projects, and the minister has already mentioned the few concrete road projects that we are engaged in, but one of particular interest to the public is the St. Peter's Road Rehabilitation Project, or the St. Peter's and the F.T. Williams Highway Rehabilitation Project. We are very pleased with the progress of the project. It's progressing really well. It is about, well, by the end of the year, we will have achieved about 50% completion of the permanent works. And so it's looking very positive for our March 2025 completion. Just yesterday, we were standing at the new roundabout, and I was expressing to my colleague that the area looks so enhanced already. So I can only imagine when the lighting infrastructure, all of the road markings, the signage is in place, and the roundabout is adopted for beautification, how much more enhanced it will be. So yeah, that's the gist of the major projects that we have been engaged in for 2024 so far.
Thank you for sharing that. Your statement makes the work seem easy, but I know it's not. And the Public Works Department does a really good job of managing. So, Mr. Minister, anything to add?
No, first I want to, of course, thank the work that is being done at Public Works Department. Public Works, I will always say, is one of those departments, like water services and perhaps even SCELEC, that will get a lot of licks. Why you ain't doing this? Why you're not doing that? But there are but a handful of engineers at Public Works. And if you listen to all of the projects that are being done, it is amazing, actually, the amount of work that we are getting done. Because this doesn't deal with all the other things we have to do. For instance, when we have these torrential rains, now we are persons who live in areas that do not have paved roads. We have to coordinate to rebuild those roads, and it's quite a bit. That is why the upgrade of the roads using concrete is such a critical exercise. When you talk about road rehabilitation, because of the intermittent rain, then the immediate hot sun, your asphalt deteriorates much faster. So whereas sometimes you may drive on a road today and you do not see a pothole, tomorrow you drive on the very same road and you want to know where this pothole has come from. That is actually an impact of climate change and the fact that we are struggling to keep up with the pace at which it is happening. So I want to give commendation to the Public Works Department. It is a department that is too small actually for the amount of work that needs to be done. And so we have been looking at ways to improve that. So recently we engaged our friends from Cuba to engage the experts of engineers from Cuba who have in the past helped many other Caribbean countries. You would recall that the Ministry of Health uses those expertise through health, through nurses and through doctors, but we have never actually done it through engineering. And so earlier this year we reached out to His Excellency the Ambassador Perez from Cuba, and immediately they were able to agree for us to have a partnership. And so right now we have 4 additional engineers from the Republic of Cuba here helping Public Works at the moment. So I want you guys to put your hands together for that partnership. This shows the commitment that we have from our friends in Cuba. And I see some of them are here right now. I don't know if all of them are here. They came just a few weeks ago, and so they're getting settled in. I know that other engineers in the department are happy for the relief. I see Mr. Sergio smiling because I think we have an architect, we have a road
One
engineer.
architect, a roads engineer, a civil engineer, and an electrical engineer.
Right. So that will bolster the ability of Public Works to deal with a number of projects. One final thing I will say about Public Works is many times people ask, why is a project taking that long? Now, I just want you to think about your own, if you ever had to build a house or anything like that. How long it will take for the architect to give you a drawing? How long will it take to go through approval through the planning board? How long construction will take? And in most times, a small house will take maybe 6 months, a larger house will take up to maybe 18 months. And that's one house. Imagine the same thing for, we didn't speak about the primary school that is being constructed, that is to be constructed.
Joshua Obadiah
School, the MRI building, the training center, all of these multi-feet roads, the St. Peter's main road, it takes significant amount of time. I'll give you an example. We can run it through very quickly. Let's say you come, Ministry of Sports comes to Public Works and say, look, we want to build a stadium in Connery. It will take a week for you to start to discuss. You need a few weeks for the design. Let's say 2 to 3 if you're being generous. That's a short time to do a design. But let's say you're being generous and we give 2 to 3 weeks. Then you have to scope it out and create what is called a tender document, a bill of quantities. Go through every single piece of material that is needed for that, price it, and then create a tender document that has to go out to public tender for at least 6 weeks. You're already at 12 weeks there. 12 weeks is what, 3 months? Before a single thing can start to move on. Then it has to come back and be evaluated. Now in the case of some of the roads that we had 9 contractors bidding. The engineers at Public Works have to go through each and every one of their proposals, go through all of the items that they have listed. It takes weeks to just evaluate the procurement document. Then they have to decide which one, based on the score sheet, they will ascribe scores based on the metric, and whoever is on top, then they have to send that to the procurement board, which has to take weeks to go through not only the one that Public Works recommended, but the others as well, to make sure that Public Works didn't make a mistake. Then it has to come back, to go back to the Ministry of Sports to say, look, we choose Mr. James as the contractor. Are you okay with, sorry, before that, you have to tell all of the persons who did not win that they did not win, so that you can give them time to challenge the decision if they think that they should have won. So you have to give time for that as well. Then you have to inform the contractor that they have won. They now have to go and get themselves prepared. They have to go and get their performance bond. They have to go and set up their insurance. They have to make sure that they have their team. They have to mobilize. And so easily, a project from conception to putting something in the ground will be minimum 5 months, minimum. But if the department has 10, 15, 20 projects working at a time, and Mr. Sergio has to go home to his wife, of course. Miss Claxton is not quite there yet, but she dances, so she has to go to dance, practice. People have lives, and it's only a few of them. So I want to give them very, very strong commendation in the face of all the criticism that they face. I have seen firsthand the work that they're doing, and I'm going to be here to support and increase that support so that we could even get the projects done faster.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Thank you, Ms. Claxton. Again, in a moment you'll have the chance to engage, but we'll take a short break. We'll be back momentarily. Goodbye.
Welcome to the guide for setting up its water services department. With simple steps, you can say goodbye to waiting in line
1, 2, 3, 4. But One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 11.
Testing. Test.
Like to adopt the protocol that has been so ably established already. Now, I welcome Mrs. Camille Bruno Odin, Director of ICT. Minister, welcome. So, the Minister outlined a number of initiatives happening within your department. Yes. He spoke about, one of the first things he spoke about was the IXP. First of all, tell us what IXP means.
All right, so good morning again. First of all, I would like to thank the Minister for the opportunity to serve, because it is a privilege to be able to serve the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And in terms of the IXP, so IXP basically stands for Internet Exchange Point. What that means is that all our internet service providers are connected to a system within our building, all right? Mm-hmm. So that means that they can exchange data, that they can, so when a data packet can come from, let's say, Digicel, it can then go straight to Flow and so forth. So basically, it's an exchange of information or data packets within the island that is occurring. At this point in time, we have all the ISPs connected to the IXP. However, not the ISPs are not connected together as yet. That is the next step. And once that is done, what we have created is an intranet, basically, in St. Kitts. And incidentally, that is how the internet began. It actually started as an intranet with the State Department connecting to the White House and so forth. So what benefits does this have to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis? Because a lot of times we speak about projects, but the citizens don't understand how it can benefit them. So I want to explain how it will benefit you. So let's say for whatever reason, a cable under the ocean is cut, there is no internet service coming into St. Kitts. Businesses and persons alike can communicate with each other because those data packets can be exchanged within the country, right? So there's no need for the data to go outside and come back in. Apart from that, there's some things that interest us. I know social development is very interested in this area here, is the content that our children have access to. So once, let's say, the secondary schools or just all schools, the Ministry of Education connects and gets the internet through the IXP, we can control the content that children have access to. So we can, for example, filter for pornography, we can filter for self-harm websites, we can filter for websites that we know would present abusive material, violent materials to children, to ensure that they are not exposed to these things, which we know some of them are going to be exposed to at their homes, but we're hoping that parents will recognize the importance of securing our children so that they can be productive adults. Another area as well is that we can then connect servers to those IXPs and place on them learning applications, educational platforms, and then we will have persons like the cable and digital, hopefully, and flow, zero rate these contents so that persons can connect, students can connect without having an internet. So you don't need to have data, you don't need to have internet. You can connect and be able to learn and get information. So for example, if I'm coming from a family that we're not very well to do, we don't have internet in our home, that does not prevent me from having access to quality information so that I can do well in school.
So it levels the playing field.
Yes.
Now, very interesting. I want to talk a little bit about the digital identification card. This sounds very interesting as well, but I think we need a little bit more information about that and why it is so important for us as a nation.
Okay, so as a nation, we're moving towards having a digital country. That means that from the safety of your home, you should be able to sit down and do any business transactions. You're supposed to be able to open a bank account. You're supposed to be able to purchase a car. All these things, you don't have to leave the comfort of your home. During the pandemic, we will have realized that a lot of businesses had to shut down because people were not able to go into these organizations to be able to do business. That digital ID will level that playing field because you will be able to authenticate yourself, meaning that when you use that card, because there is a chip that is in that card and a digital certificate, so each person will have their own certificate that will identify them. So we would know definitely this is the Honorable Konris Maynard. Nobody cannot duplicate him because, as he would have explained before, that this card has 8 security measures, and this is the same organization in the same plant where our Visa cards, our MasterCards are being produced. So if we are comfortable using our Visa cards and our MasterCards, then we should feel very comfortable using that digital ID. And what it does as well too is the ease of business. It will make things run faster and smoother because that means you don't have to go in with your millions of documents. You have to go get the birth certificate. You have to go and get the police record. You have to go and get all these things to bring to an organization to be able to get the service that you need from them. All these things you would be able to provide to them by just using that card. If they would be able to pull information from the various organizations, that would be able to smooth, let's say, streamline different processes within the government and even within the private sector.
Again, this all sounds very interesting, very exciting, but I've got to ask you about timelines. When can we expect to have this digital ID card? All
right, so in January, we're actually starting the first testing phase. As the minister would have mentioned, we would have just concluded the digital ID card competition. So once that we would have settled on the design, which we have, then it's now to put the card into production. And once, well, that they have already started to produce some of the cards, but without the design on them. We're now going to start the testing of the system to ensure that it is secure, that it is functional, it is doing what we want it to do. At this point in time as well, we're going to be starting the civil registry, which we're going to use to authenticate persons against. So that civil registry, we call it a repository of truth. So then we would know that Jamiela McPhail is Jamiela McPhail, and so we have to have these two systems together. So hopefully by sometime next year, we're trying to really accelerate a lot of the things, as I said to Minister Carty, sorry, to Mr. Carty. When I saw that Jamaica had their digital ID card, I felt jealous. I felt emotional. Honestly, I felt emotional because I said, oh, they forced us. So it is with speed now we're moving, because we want to be at least in the smaller areas. We can say we did it before a lot of the others. So sometime next year, we're looking towards August. We will be finishing with the testing and then start to roll out the cards. But you must recognize as well that there has to be some legal framework put in place for us to be able to roll out the cards. So as much as we are excited and want to get that done, we have to also ensure that the legal framework is in place to protect your data, to dictate how the data can be used, and how who has access to that data.
Okay. So, Minister Maynard, I've got to ask you about the legal framework, because this is your area. How soon can we expect this coming to Parliament? Well, you know, you'll be in Parliament debating it, right? So
Yes, so actually what has happened, we have just engaged the services of an expert consultant in the field of digital transformation to aid in this transformation, because obviously we would not have done it before. However, some time ago, a team of us had traveled to Estonia, which is the heartland of this, and we were able to meet firsthand with the pioneers of digital government. We went to their conference, we were able to visit their academy, we were able to meet with all of the persons who worked in the ministries and have now expanded to create companies. And one of those companies proposed to us in collaboration with others. There was a procurement process, and the company was selected recently, and that company's name is Cybernetica, and they will come in now to do an overall look at what frameworks we need to change, what our legislation needs to look like, how do we establish the best practices. Obviously, privacy and security are going to be paramount in that. And so we are confident that we are on the right path, so we are waiting the results from that analysis. That will be done throughout 2025. I think the timeline is a few months into 2025, and then they will provide a report on what we are to do. There's also another whole of government strategy document that has shown us what the pathway looks like to accomplish a lot of these things. So we're moving. I also want to say that we have set up what is called a Digital Transformation Management Unit, which is headed by His Excellency Nigel Carty, former Minister of ICT, advisor to the ministry, but also the Chief Digital Transformation Officer. And they are building out a unit, hiring experts to specifically move on the transformation of government services. So that is ongoing. I'm pleased that we have a capital project for that. We had one this year, and well, I can't give too much information on the budget, but we're going to have it into the new year. We don't want to spoil it, right? So that is going. And this digital transformation is going to be across all sectors, and it's going to be critical for us to partner with places like the cable, etc., because we have to make sure we have the interconnection, we have to make sure we have the framework. And one thing I want to stress on with the digital transformation is St. Vincent has made strides in different areas. So Inland Revenue has made some strides. You know, you can do a number of things already online at Inland Revenue. Customs has made some strides. Finance through the Treasury has some robust systems there. We're not going to rebuild all of these systems. In Estonia, what they have found is that it was unnecessary to start anything from scratch. And so they developed something called X-Roads, which is an interoperability platform that allows all of these established silos to then have a place where they can communicate. So that is something that we are looking at in terms of making sure that all of these different advancements we have already made, your database at Social Security, at Inland Revenue, at Customs, you know, that we can interconnect them. And then we build out the other repositories that don't exist now, like the civil registry, which is still manual, or the police certificates, the birth, marriages, etc. All of those things will now be put into a place of truth, so that when your card calls upon the database, it will say you are Jamila, that you live this place, and the different businesses will only have access in their system to the information that they are allowed to have, right? And only if you give them the authentication to do so, that they can access that information. Another important thing about the development of keeping it as silos is if we have a cyber attack of any sort, we want to make sure that all of our information is not compromised. And so if you have dedicated silos that they individually have their own protective measures, we can safeguard our system. I want to thank the ICT department. Obviously, as a country, we get threats every day. You're not aware of them, but we get threats every single day. And they have been doing an excellent job with the tools that they have to try and thwart them. Obviously, nothing is ever 100% foolproof, but they are working very hard to ensure that our information is safe.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mrs. Bruno O'Dane, for joining us this morning. You both mentioned the cable and partnership with the cable, so we'll take a short break and we'll come back with Ms. Pat Walters, CEO of the cable.
Testing.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Jimmy?
Testing 1, 2, 3. Walters. Now, Ms. Walters, we have heard so much about the cable this morning, and we know that public-private sector partnership is important. So tell us how your organization is working with the ministry to ensure that some of these buckets become a reality.
Excellent question. I just wanted to start off first though by just reinforcing where St. Kitts and Nevis is in the world or in the Caribbean in terms of access to internet and data. In 2023, St. Kitts and Nevis was #1 in the Caribbean in terms of fixed broadband penetration per 100 population. I think that's something we should be very proud of. #1 in the Caribbean. Now, some reports say Barbados is #1, but this is statistically St. Kitts and Nevis is #1. And a few years ago, we were #1 in Latin America and the Caribbean, but this is in the Caribbean, St. Kitts and Nevis. So aligned with all of the broadband providers and data providers and the government, it has been a vision to make sure that access to reliable, robust infrastructure for broadband is a reality, and we see it in those figures. So what have we been doing? We've been making sure that access to internet, and we saw it in COVID, where they talk about critical infrastructure being water and electricity, but I think most people thought internet was right up there with critical infrastructure. If I was not connected in the world and I was at home, I felt like something was missing. And so we realized the importance of internet and access to data through COVID. And so the vision is no one's left behind. Everybody should have available, accessible, affordable internet or access to data. So in the past couple of years, what have we done? We've made sure that there's free internet in every community centre in St. Kitts. So there is no need for anybody, if they don't have it at home, to not be able to go to the community centre and have access to the internet for youth programmes, groups, worship, anything, after school, adult learning, to be able to go to a community centre and have access to the internet. Not just within the building, but on the compound as well. We've made sure that internet is free, or Wi-Fi is free downtown in last year, especially for the small vendors as well that are there. That some of them are very, very kind of progressive with their apps for accepting cards and stuff, so they can have access to the internet and be able to digitally have their e-commerce and do sales and processing. I think the biggest thing for me for 2024 though was the connectivity of health. And so in 2024, together with our regulator, the NTRC, and the government and the Ministry of Health, we connected every single health centre with the 3 hospitals with one network, with one fibre network, which means that if I'm in Sandy Point and I'm ill and I haven't got access to get down to JNF, but I can get to the health centre. I can go into the health centre, present my symptoms, and they can then video conference a specialist in JFK or one of the other hospitals. And we launched that a few months ago, Minister, where it's a reality. And it extends, if you imagine it into 2025, where you don't just have access to specialists on island, but you can have access to specialists internationally when we partner with other health institutions. So that's just one example of this. How do you use technology and the digitalization to empower and improve the life of our citizens and residents? So that's healthcare. In 2025, it will be education. It will be water. So how do you, and electricity, they need an infrastructure so that the sensors can speak to each other and send alarms and triggers. And it's not just us, it's all of the providers, but all together, like I said, we've made St. Kitts #1, and we will continue to make St. Kitts #1.
Fantastic. Minister, how important are these partnerships?
Well, one of the benefits I think that St. Kitts and Nevis has is to have a close relationship with service providers such as the cable, meaning that the government still owns a majority stake in the company, which means that the vision of the government is not as far off, and these types of collaborations can happen. Where we want to see it in the future, not just with the cable but for all internet providers, is a number of the services that we intend to do, that the same digital platform, digital government platform, require high-speed internet. And one of the things I noted when I think we were at the plenipot for ITU, I had the opportunity to speak with my Swedish counterparts, I think, and their minimum access to some of their homes is 1 gigabyte, 1 gigabit of data. So I've given CEO a challenge that by 2030, every household in St. Kitts must have access to 1 gigabit of data by 2030, giving enough time for us to reach there. That will mean that all of the services that we are going to be going to, there will be no sluggishness and it will be instantaneous. So that's one of the advantages of having these partnerships with not just the cable but with everyone. So we want to really make St. Kitts a digital ecosystem that is the envy of the region and the world. And I want to say, as a result of that, of course, recently we had the CityU conference here in St. Kitts, where for the first time the Secretary General of the ITU visited the Caribbean in that capacity as Secretary General. This is the foremost person in telecommunications in the globe, and she chose St. Kitts and Nevis to come to first, and that says a lot. As a result of that, they recently invited me to speak on behalf of the Caribbean through my vice president position at the CTU at the COP29 in Baku. You know, people talk about traveling all the time and so on, etc., but this was an invitation sponsored, of course, by the persons who invited. And remarkably, I was the only small island person there at the table. And importantly, at that ITU round table, they asked St. Kitts and Nevis to speak first. So we are making the waves, we are doing what we need to do to show our commitment to this transformation, and I'm very confident that with partnerships like with the cable, we're going to get there.
I just wanted to talk about speeds. So when I started in this role, our minimum speed was 3 megs.
Wow.
Can you imagine that? And I kept talking, yes, that's about 5 years ago, and I kept saying minimum 100 megs, 100 megs. The minister said, Pat, no, 1 gig. And so, you know, I'm so pleased that each year at Christmas, we bump everybody up to minimum 100. So everybody in St. Kitts and Nevis, minimum 100 at Christmas, just so they can experience it. Because in a typical household, you have somebody gaming, somebody streaming, somebody watching TV, somebody playing games or worshipping, and it's amazing how that just sucks up bandwidth, and sometimes, you know, you don't want it circling around. We've also got Netflix and Google caches here. So what that means is, when you go onto Netflix, you don't have to go over, you don't have to go, no more buffering, you don't have to go off island to come back, it's cached here. So there's like a version here that's stored, and with the IXP, when everybody syncs up, then that will be available to the other providers as well. So the Google and the Netflix, and whatever they have cached here, we can then share. So we're looking forward to the IXP, and we've also got triple redundancy off island. So if an anchor of a ship rips up the fiber from here to Miami, we've got another 3 ways out. So we've got that full redundancy as well, and then we'll have the intranet. So we're in a good place. We're going to remain #1.
Yes, very good, very good.
Okay, Ms. Walters, I want to thank you. I'm impressed, and I'm sure that everyone here can feel your excitement about the work that you're doing, and we thank you so much for the service that you provide.
Thank you.
We'll take another short break.
Thank you. All right.
Test 1, 2. 2. Testing, testing.
I'm now joined by Director of Energy, Dr. Bertold Brown, and SCIDEC General Manager, Mr. Clement Williams. Welcome, gentlemen. Now, Minister, in your opening presentation, you spoke a lot about energy. We know that the energy sector is critical for every nation. You spoke about the need for us to sort of collaborate between generator energy and the push towards renewable energy. Yeah. Now, Mr. Williams, my question for you is how do we do that? How do we balance both?
Okay, that's a very important question, and thank you for that. Now, the energy mix, be in St. Kitts and Nevis, is something that's very important to us. Now, the minister mentioned earlier that we have traditionally done this for fossil fuel, and the emerging technologies, solar PV. Now, what the plan is to diversify that energy mix so you don't have all your eggs in one basket. So we have done a number of collaboration with different entities to perform the necessary studies to determine what the values that are required for the different sectors. So we have worked with a company called TVPV, and we have done grid modernization studies, tariff studies, and EV integration studies, which I'm sure Bertie will expand on some more when you get to it. So the three main sources that we are looking to integrate would be solar PV, wind energy, and geothermal as the baseline or the base load. This can all be done through the technology that is available to us now and through proper engineering and planning, and with the financing from our shareholder, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. All of this will be possible and is actually ongoing as we speak.
Okay. So Dr. Brown, for many years we've heard about the push towards renewable energy. And to many people on the ground, it's sort of a pie in the sky notion, something that is not quite attainable. But we are seeing some moves in that direction. We are seeing the inclusion of solar panels on persons' homes. You know, people have invested in these things. Now, what are some of the challenges that the ordinary man and woman will face in going towards that direction?
Good morning to everybody. There are several challenges and they are interconnected. The first one I will tell you about is the high upfront cost. Because of the high upfront cost, the persons who presently are putting in solar panels are persons who could afford to do it cash. The other one is that the banks do not have loans specific for solar panels. The way they have, you could routinely go in the bank, get a loan for a vehicle, a loan for a house, a mortgage. You don't have that. The other one is the lack of certainty. Do you put in solar panels, how will you make your money back? You're not sure. Are you doing it correctly? Are you connecting to the grid correctly? They're not sure. The other thing is, who can I get to install this for me? People want to put them in, they're not technical. We get calls at the energy unit regularly asking us to recommend persons to, for installation of solar panels. Sometimes I can't remember them off the top of my head. I may be biased and recommend a certain person. Now, what we're doing, we are addressing these problems with the small-scale renewable energy, distributed renewable energy regulations. So now that brings certainty. You could go into the bank, once that is launched, you could go into the bank and tell the bank, this regulation says that if I put solar PV on my roof, SCELEC is obligated to pay me for what I feed into the grid. You could also do a SCELEC tariff schedule and say, this is the amount that they will pay me. The other thing, when they call me now, they could direct them. We have the directory. It's already online. We only have about 7 persons on it at the moment, but it will expand. I could direct them to that directory. They could probably get a number of persons who could install solar panels and speak to them and decide which one that they're going to use.
Okay, so we're strapped for time, but what can we expect in 2025?
Well, you have the movement in geothermal, which is the big one. It has the potential to really transform the cities and uses economy. And the plan is to develop an export resource in uses, interconnect both islands, so they become one grid. Also connect neighboring islands via undersecurity. Also produce other energy carriers such as hydrogen for export. So that is the main one. The tariff would come in place next year. We will have electric vehicle policy and action plan that would come in place that we could use to map the path towards the introduction of renewable energy policy. Because if we have a few electric vehicles and say it's not a problem, but as it grows, it will become a problem for SCELEC. So they have to know what they have to do in order to upgrade the grid to accommodate this. They have to know where to put charging stations. We have to know how will we, in terms of the ownership of the charging station, will the government own them, will the private own some combination. So those are the things that we expect to see during the coming years.
Okay, so we are really just putting the framework in place to ensure this all becomes a reality.
Yes, we would.
Okay. Minister, do you have anything to add?
Well, I mean, this is a very broad area. I did jump into some of it before. Critically, people have been asking about the geothermal for many years. I think that is going to be one of the most critical things that we pursue over the next 2 to 5 years to actually see some results from it. There have been starts and stops, but I'm pleased that one, we now have a CDB loan guaranteed of $16 million to start the drilling. We also have the Saudi Fund for Development, who is assessing an additional 20 million more. We have the same CDB assessing that they can increase that, I think, by another 20 or 30 million. Now, there are other things that we are working on as a government that I'm not yet permitted to say because they're in that preliminary stage, but there are investors who are now doing feasibility studies to provide what is a whole of sector solution. I recently got the report, their initial report, earlier this week on how they will do it, what steps need to be taken, and the phases of implementation. That has to be reviewed, and as soon as that is available to share, we will do that. So geothermal is really what I call, and let me divert just quickly. Growing up, I've said this story before, growing up when we were in school. You remember when we were in school? Yes. Right? And they used to tell us that Guyana had gold and lumber. Jamaica had bauxites. Right? Other places had other things. But St. Kitts and Nevis, they would say, had no natural resources. But the reality is, we have our own gold, our own bauxite, our own lumber in geothermal. It is right here, and it has the potential to power not only St. Kitts and Nevis, but all of our neighboring islands in nearby proximity. And people say, oh, this is a pie in the sky. No. Again, on a sponsored trip, I was invited to a European tour for ministers of the Caribbean. I, along with ministers from Dominican Republic, from Barbados, and some others. We were taken on a tour in Europe to look at some of these facilities. And one of them that I remember in particular is the one in Mallorca. Mallorca is an island off Spain. It is over 200 and something kilometers away from Spain. They have an underground electric cable that connects from mainland Spain to Mallorca. I visited the facility that turns that electricity, which is DC, because of the distance, DC underground, back to AC current to go onto the grid in Mallorca. I saw the people who made it. We were able to see the actual cables. We were able to see the control center that operates all of this, and how they have been able to spread that same electricity to other neighboring islands. And suffice it to say, the persons who built that are the same persons we are talking to do the feasibility on doing it for us. So that's why I can't go into too much details now, but we're working on it. So this is fantastic news, but it will take time. It will take time. Unfortunately, Rome wasn't built in a day, and this takes significant amount of time, especially because the upfront cost is so much. So once all of those things are done, I'm confident about that. And also in terms of where we are going with your ability to get money for your solar, I'm hoping that we're going to launch that very early in the new year. I don't think we'll be able to announce it just yet, because Skelec has to confirm how much they're gonna pay you for your electricity, right, Mr. Williams?
No, that's you too.
No.
The only thing I can confirm is that the price needs to increase.
Okay,
That's the only thing I can confirm.
Meaning the price you're gonna pay them, pay people.
No.
So what basically I think what he's saying is that the cost for them to generate electricity is way below the cost that people are actually paying for the electricity. That's another challenge that we all have to deal with, because the cost of production with inflation and so on is dramatically higher than when the tariffs were set. But with the installation of these systems, it will provide Skelec some ease as well, because if we get 100 homes, put in 100 kilowatt, a megawatt of electricity on the grid, it means that Skelec doesn't have to produce that. You put it in the grid, Skelec pays you for it like you're a wholesaler. Let's say Skelec pays you 10 cents for it, 10 US cents. Skelec will then, okay, I will share this now with some other customers, and I'll charge them 7 cents for my infrastructure to get it there. So very early in the new year, we're going to be launching that, as well as the electric vehicle policy, so that persons will have the ability to buy electric vehicles. We're trying to finalize what the concession package would look like for that with the Ministry of Finance. So that's the other part of it that we have to do. But these are some exciting times, and because of our size, we really do have the ability to reach, even still, our 2030 goal of 100% renewable energy production.
Okay, fantastic. Gentlemen, thank you so much for sharing with us.
Certain that the audience is excited about all that you had to share. We'll take another break.
Greetings. Right now I'm here witnessing the paving of part of the St. Peter's Main Road, F.T. Williams Highway construction and resurfacing the railway. The area just behind where the airport runway starts, heading down to the Shadwell roundabout, and things seem to be.
Welcome back to the press conference. At this point in the program, this is the Q&A segment, and we begin this segment with a youth representative in the person of Michaelia Tucker.
We're moving towards creating a sustainable island state, and I would like to touch on the approach, the sustainable approach for urban planning. So how is the government incorporating environmental sustainability within infrastructure projects, and how can the youth assist in this process?
Right. Very good question. You are correct. This administration has or is pursuing what is called the Sustainable Island State agenda. So everything we do, keep that in mind, affects the environment in terms of how material are procured and conservation of areas that should be protected. So for instance, we're right now doing analysis. I think we've already passed the procurement stage for the revetment of the Fort Lands area. How do you build something that preserves the land but does not encroach upon our environment? When we look at our water facility, the desal plant, we would have done an environmental impact assessment of the area at the industrial site to ensure that any development of a plant does not adversely affect the area there. We would have done the same thing for the desal plant at the Canada industrial site to ensure that any impact that the plant has is well understood and we can put proactive and protective measures in place. In fact, when the construction was happening for the desal plant at Canada, we encountered a swamp? A pond. And so measures had to be taken to ensure that what we built was sustainable, not to damage in any excess way the pond or its environs. So I think how can youth be involved is a very, very good question. Obviously we have young persons who are already in the ministry, but there are programs that I know that Ministry of Sustainable Development and Ministry of Environment are doing to engage youth so that they can be focal points and ambassadors for environment. There are many around the world, and in fact, the Minister for Sustainable Development and Environment, etc., and I will have a conversation shortly about how we can get our youth ambassadors more on the world stage. Oftentimes when we attend these events, we are sponsored to go to these events, etc., we see a number of youth ambassadors from other Caribbean countries, and we're realizing that we do not have that presence. So, for instance, when we participated in COP recently, they would have delegated specifically youth representatives to have a chance to give their input on the world stage. So it's a collective effort that is happening across our ministries, led by our Sustainable Island State Agenda, that is being led by our Minister of Sustainable Development, Dr. Joy Clark. Thank you for the very interesting question. Very good.
And thank you for so ably answering it. I am appreciative of your response, and I'll take everything that you said into consideration. And thank you, everyone. We will now take a short break.
Good morning, it's good afternoon. And my name is Glenn Bart, representing SK Newsline. Mr. Minister, you have mentioned this morning one of the major road projects, the St. Peter's Highway and the F.T. Williams Highway. Now, I want to put those into the context of the overall sustainability push of the government. Because, you see, what I have found in the past is that sometimes new roads are built, but they do not last very long. I don't know if it has to do with the kind of asphalt mix or if there's something else at play. But we can't afford to be spending millions of dollars over and over on certain kinds of roads. So I want you to address, for example, sustainability issues that you will have to consider when building something like the resurfacing the F.T. Williams Highway, and also to include safety issues, safety features that should go into a modern highway, such as proper lighting, because I find that a lot of motorists now are complaining that the lights are so dim that they have to use their bright lights. and they can't afford to take them off when all the traffic is approaching them, and that creates a hazard. So comment on that for me, please.
Right. So thank you for that question. It's a very important question, and it highlights the challenges that our countries will have with the change in climate and the access to the type of material that can survive. So oftentimes, can no one stand there, please, by the light? Yes, oftentimes what you have is how things are developed. There are particular mixes that are determined that can last time. But that is dependent on all sorts of things, not just the bitumen, not just the sand, not just the different admixtures that are added, but also the stone and how porous they are and how much water they can take, etc. So sometimes you have to make a determination as to, do you have the right strength of stone available? How much will it cost for you to have to import that? Do you look to see if that is going to perhaps last you the 10 years as opposed to 15 versus the cost? So all of those things are considered in the mix. And I know for the St. Peter's Main Road that the contractor, I think, engaged professionals to determine the design mix based on all of these environmental factors.
That's the question.
Another critical is because of rain and heat, sometimes you need to build a road such that there is adequate and fast runoff of the water. So I think I've heard persons complaining maybe of the slope sometimes in the road. That's part of the environmental thrust, to be able to get rid of the water quickly off of the road so that it does not settle. Because if it settles, that is where you can have some challenges. Also, drainage is another critical element of ensuring that these infrastructure are environmentally friendly, because once you put a hard surface down, it means then that you're collecting all of that water. It's not permeating the ground, so you have to be able to catch it and take it away. So a number of these concrete projects that are being built, part of the infrastructure has to include drainage, which, by the way, carries up the cost dramatically, but it is an important aspect to be done. Now, in terms of the lighting, yes, we always want to ensure that there is proper lighting, and I know one of the discussions that have been happening recently is proper marking of the roads. The challenge is, of course, this particular project is under construction. It is not yet complete. So there are areas of the road that are not yet done. The roundabout just before the F.D. Williams, the roundabout just after. But it is a scheduled process. Ideally also, with road markings, you don't want to put it on immediately, because the road has to take some time to oxidize. That could be from 1, 2, up to maybe 5 weeks needed to oxidize, so that when you put the coat of paint on it, it doesn't come right back off. Also, it's difficult sometimes to put a temporary type of paint on it before you put on the one that's reflective in nature, because the one that is reflective in nature is designed to go directly on the asphalt. So if you put temporary paint on it, you have the possibility of putting on the thermoplastic, or I don't remember the exact name for it, on that, and then it eats right up. So all of these things are considered. What I want to urge, though, is that drive with caution, especially if we see that roads are under construction. In fact, all of the time, we should be driving with caution. What it appears in a number of the things that we are seeing is that it's possible that that folks were not being cautious in their driving. We still drive on the left-hand side of the road, right? We have one lane, stay on your side, and ensure that you're not taking unnecessary risks. Anybody who is in a vehicle and someone is not driving to your liking, ask them to stop and put you out, because your life is of utmost priority. But I want to really urge to drive with caution and to remember that the F.D. Williams St. Peter's Highway, it is under construction. It still has a few months to go. Things have to be done in phases. Things have to be done according to a schedule. We spoke with I had the opportunity with the Prime Minister yesterday to visit part of the F.D. Williams, and encouraged, of course, that all of the necessary signage, the cones and so on, as much as possible, be placed to ensure that motorists know that this is an area to drive with caution.
Just to address the lighting issue a little bit more. For example, on the Williams, the lighting was far away from the road, and so very little lighting was actually getting onto the road. And this is before the new road is being built. And also, there should be minimum gaps between the light poles so that there are no blank spots in between. We take, for example, also the Frigate Bay highway between the Central Bank building, go all the way over to the Zen Boulevard. The lighting is pretty dim, actually, and that creates another set of issues for drivers. So I want to know if safety issues in terms of lighting is playing a critical role in the build-out of roads and the use of roads in St. Kitts and Nevis.
So you must recall that these are installations that are already in place. And over time, SCELEC in particular would have a schedule of replacement. And I believe that they continue to pursue that. In some instances, we are going to have to look where there were, for instance, I know that some places have had solar-powered lighting that have gone out. But this is squarely on the agenda for improvement over time. It would be lovely, of course, as with everything, to be able to change out all of them immediately, but there has to be a schedule based on the economic realities of how fast that can happen. However, I give a commitment to ensure that SCELEC is pursuing the most vigorous timeline to be able to address any areas that in particular, that are the worst among them. So it is at the forefront of our minds, and given your question as well, and given the recent elevated discussions on it, I will ensure that SCELEC is properly positioned to do the best they can in the situation.
Right, let's shift gears now to the Basta High School. That is a major project, very much delayed. People are anxious, they want to get it going. What is the status on that? Where are we? What is the costing? What features are going to be included, etc.?
Right. Not every project is going to be a project that involves public works, especially when it is a private sector engaged project. So that project is actually managed through the Ministry of Education, and it is intended to be a project that is through the Citizenship by Investment Program, as I understand it. And very shortly, we are going to have budget presentation, and I know that there's going to be some further updates on this. I know that the design phase and so on has been going through, and I think they are ready now to start engaging with the developers to get it going. But unlike other projects which we have spoken of, it is not a project that is presently managed by Public Works. It is under the Ministry of Education, and I know that they're trying to push full steam to get it done. Like all of us, we want to see that project going. But again, I want to underscore that is a massive project, and it takes a lot of time even just to develop the plans and the designs based on the location. All the testing, all the soil test, all of those things take significant amount of time, and the arrangement. So sometimes when people give Public Works and Water Services some serious licks about 2 months project, look at any serious project around the globe. A big school, a bridge, you know, a major thing. It takes years even just to get it off of the ground. And so I'm confident that every effort is being made by the Ministry of Education to push through on this project.
All right, thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
Individuals whom you want to, so you can pull them aside if you want to talk further. All right? Mr. Lloyd.
Good afternoon, all. Minister, allow me to adopt the protocol that you would have established earlier. It gives me great pleasure, of course, to address the closing session of this press conference organized by the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, Energy and Utilities, Domestic Transport, Information Communications, and Technology and Post. Allow me to first convey special thanks and appreciation to Minister Maynard for his address, looking at the challenges and successes we have encountered in 2024, and for giving an indication of the ministry's plans for 2025. I would like to thank the resource persons and representatives from the ministry and the media houses that have made today's press conference a success. Today, we would have shared several examples, impressive commitments to transform the landscape of St. Kitts and Nevis and to tackle sustainable development challenges. As Permanent Secretary, I know how important it is to have a firm understanding of the basics of what truly makes a difference. And what can make a difference are serious, implementable initiatives that will advance sustainable development. Going into 2025 and beyond, these commitments must be galvanized action where it really matters. The hard work begins now to prepare for 2025. Making promises is easy. Keeping them takes sustained efforts. However, this ministry intends to live up to its commitment. Before I conclude, I wish to make mention of what differentiates a commitment from a good intention, and that is accountability. That is why, as a ministry, we are committed to providing deliverables with estimated completion dates and to report on their achievements. The Ministry of Public Infrastructure, Energy and Utilities, Domestic Transport, Information, Communications, Technology and Post is fully aware of the challenges that we face, but is ever mindful that with careful planning, we can have a more productive year in 2025. I wish to take this opportunity, of course, to express appreciation to all the employees of the ministry for their dedicated service to the advancement of this ministry. I want to also take an opportunity in closing to impress upon all road users, particularly because of what would have transpired yesterday. We recognize that the nation was plunged into a serious state of darkness because of maybe what could be considered as reckless driving. And so I want to encourage you during this festive season to use the roads wisely. I want to impress upon you to obey traffic laws, to avoid distractions, not to drink alcohol and drive, avoid speeding, be cautious of weather conditions. We as a ministry, of course, will do whatever we can to ensure that the roads are safe. As was indicated, we recognize that there are a number of potholes because of climate change. And so the ministry has given the commitment, of course, to work particularly around Bastille during this festive season to ensure that we deal with those issues. We thank you, of course, the media and all persons for being here with us today. And we pray God richest blessings on this ministry going forward. Thank you, and God bless you.
Greetings. Right now I'm here witnessing the paving of part of the St. Peter's Main Road, FT Williams Highway construction and resurfacing. Well, we're in the area just behind where the airport runway starts, heading down to the Shadwell roundabout.